What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, reading a random Spider-Man 2099 graphic novel. It's not that random in my reading. I've been kind of slowly making my way through these for a while. This is volume 3 of the kind of bigger graphic novels. These aren't quite epic sized. They're about half the size of an epic collection. And but it is the best collected edition we have of any of the 2099 stories thus far. And it's gotten pretty far. It's gone to a volume 5, which they retitled it Spider-Man vs. Venom 2099, rather than keeping the volume number on the side, annoyingly enough. But getting into volume 3, we are into Spider-Man 2099, 15 through 22, with a crossover event that includes Ravage 2099, 15, X-Men 2099, number 5, Doom 2099, 14, and Punisher 2099, number 13. So you get a lot of varying tone in this. This is a crossover event, and we see what happens in here. At the very beginning of this, we have a nice little Spider-Man adventure where he's dealing with his life, dealing with these gods who are coming back. And so if you read the first 2 volumes, there's a plot thread in here where there's this cult that like follows Thor and says Thor's going to be returning, and they really worship Thor. And in this, at the very beginning, these guys come and they say they're Thor and what's the other guy's name? Heimdall. And they say that they are returned and coming back. And they show up in this this sort of corporate city. I really love the setting of this because like all the cities are owned by corporations. It's all corporate law. Kind of feels like now instead of 2099, but really enjoyable. This was a nice setup right here for the event. And who did the art on this? It was Rick Leonardi, and yeah, he did an excellent job. I really like this art style. It's very classic comics, but with that futuristic mindset. And then that was just the setup for this. And here we have Miguel, who is Spider-Man, showing up in this like floating continent city with his girlfriend who works for the company. And he has to deal with these like thunder gods who make the claim of who they are. Now there's a background story here. This is a personal AI assistant, and we learn a lot about her in this volume, but she is basically a hologram who just does all of his stuff at his house. And she's been having a weird problem with her program where she's been getting jealous and causing problems for him. That's probably the most interesting storyline in Spider-Man 2099. And right now she is dealing with his brother who shows up at his house and is kind of questioning where he's at. And she's starting to go off the rails here right as this event starts. Now we get into this event, and Spider-Man gets thrown around by the gods, and Punisher 2099 shows up, and we go into Ravage 2099, even though that's the case. And all these characters just start to sort of converge upon the gods here. So I actually didn't like Ravage 2099 all that much. I just thought it was a kind of a knockdown, drag out, beat 'em up sort of thing. There wasn't too much interesting to it. Same with the X-Men. I mean, to be fair, I've not been reading the background of the X-Men or Ravage, so I just got these single issues where it crosses over, and we have these Asgardian bad guys who are not real Asgardians. Now, where it really gets interesting is Doom shows up, and Doom is a very interesting character in 2099. He has lived through all of this. He is the same Doctor Doom, and he, basically wants the power that's coming from this, and so he's working to seize it. Very fun. We get back into Punisher, where Spider-Man and Punisher have met, and they're going to go after these Asgardians now because they've determined they're fake, determined they're these like genetically modified whatevers, and there's just a knockdown, drag-out battle that then ends there with the help of Doom and help of X-Men and Ravage. It was just like a sort of dragged out storyline that, probably could have used a couple issues, but ended up being 5 because they wanted to include all the characters. So you buy the entire line, yay! And that's how they were trying to get everybody invested in the line, because everybody was buying Spider-Man and nobody was buying the other books. Just like every time they launch some new initiative. As an event, I mean, it was okay. There wasn't anything special about it so much. It's half the book, so I was a little ready to just plow through that and read through it really quickly. And finally, we get back to our Spider-Man 2099 story, where Miguel is kind of tied up, and he has to deal with this guy who's seized Thor's hammer, and he kind of exposes that it's a fake hammer and not that useful, even though it's still got some use to it. And somebody else gets it, and it goes away. Now we get back into the Lila story. So this is his brother, and I believe his brother's girlfriend, and then Spider-Man's girlfriend. They're all kind of hanging out. His brother's girlfriend's in love with Spider-Man, and it's causing friction with his brother. And then his actual girlfriend, Miguel's actual girlfriend, is just kind of getting annoyed that he's gone and all that. So there's a lot of nice personal tension, and that's where Peter David really shines as a writer, with the personal tension. We get with Ron Lim as a penciler, who did a lot of the Jim Starlin Silver Surfer stuff, which is nice. I like that. And his art's really good here. And then we really have to deal with the Lila character, who has caused major problems at this point, and then starts actually attacking Miguel, and he actually has to go on the run and deal with that. Now, his brother is an addict to these video games, which are a virtual reality, which is where this comes in. This is an homage to the first issue cover, and this is his brother, or I'm sorry, this is actually him. In the 2000 in this virtual reality setup. There's a very 90s storyline we get right here with virtual reality, where they're trapped in virtual reality and have to fight and deal with this, deal with his addiction. And there's a rogue AI in there that's basically causing all these problems, and actually has caused Lila to go off the rails also. And so Miguel wants to save Lila. He also wants to save his brother, and the villain name is Discord, of course. And this starts right here. There's these backup features that have Young 2099, and it shows young Miguel O'Hara entering the Alchemax sort of youth program, to where he becomes a programmer and becomes it fleshes out his background a little more. They're actually pretty interesting and pretty good. So we get back to our virtual reality, and they're on skates. Wow. Rollerblades, because that's how. What else would you do in the 90s in virtual reality other than go on rollerblades? So, and it cuts off pretty early, with them kind of breaking through the barrier here and getting back, in order to get back into the backup feature, where somebody actually tries to hold him down and kill him. And then finally, we are back to normal Spider-Man 2099 outside of the virtual reality. And this is a filler issue. This is a fill-in issue by some random person. I don't know what happened here. And he has to deal with these hooker gals or something. Kind of a boring issue. It's just a fight issue where he ends up teaming up with them. I think he ended up teaming up with them. Is that right? He had to fight one of them at least. And then it just ends as he fought one of them and, did their deal. Not very exciting. And look, you'll notice there's not even a backup feature issue in this one. So this was really just a filler that was pulled out and has nothing to do with the storyline, never gets referenced again, totally useless. And we get back into the real storyline now. So we are in virtual reality land again. And Spider-Man's finally dealt with his brother's addiction, gets him out of there, and then he tries to get Lila back. And we learn why Lila has her features. This has to deal with his first girlfriend at Alchemax from the original background stories. So they actually tie into the main story now, which is kind of nice. I like when they do that. And she was very into Marilyn Monroe and got a tattoo of Marilyn Monroe. And so he kind of had that as a reference to her. And so it creates another awkward social tension with this. So He has to eventually go back to this gal because I guess she's the one who programmed the AI originally, and try to patch up with her, even though he's dumped her for another gal at this point, in order to save his Lila AI program. And the volume ends here, unfortunately. So it ends on a cliffhanger, like mid-storyline. It really was just, collecting the bare minimum of stories, I guess, for them to want to sell this and then move on to the next volume. So you definitely have to read the next if you want to find out what's going to go on with the story, which is kind of annoying, especially as the crossover story really didn't merit too much attention. And we find out this is the original gal as he gets rescued and comes back and is working with the Alchemex thing on the backup feature. So fun stuff. Overall, I really liked it. I like the Spider-Man 2099 issues. I think the event was kind of blasé, and the filler issue obviously was just annoying that it exists. But I'm glad they collected it so that we have all of it, because it's nice to read these runs all the way through like this. So weakest volume of Spider-Man 2099 so far. I think volumes 1 and 2 were a lot stronger. Hopefully volume 3, since we don't have to, or volume 4, since we don't have to deal with a crossover and we can just dial into that main storyline, we'll pick right back up. These are really hard to find, by the way. Volume 2 is out of print and will run you over $100 if you really want to find it. If you can find it for cover price or less, I highly, highly recommend grabbing that just as like a investment. I don't know that these are going to get reprinted. Volume 3 is also getting kind of hard to find, so that's the deal with that. Volume 1 is good, easy to find, and Volume 4 and 5 are pretty easy to find also. Will they be doing a Volume 6? That would conclude the run of Peter David from the 90s. I hope they make that, and hope they make it this year so that we can have the full finished storyline, but who knows? I don't know how well these are selling and if they have plans to do that. So that's it for Spider-Man 2099. I guess because of the overall, I didn't enjoy it all that much. Probably 6 out of 10 for my reading. But there are highlight moments and there are moments that aren't so good. So it's a kind of a mixed bag. If you like my reviews, definitely hit the like and subscribe button, and I will be back for more only on Diversity in Comics. See you.